Okay, we're going to go ahead and start today's conference call. And when someone comes into the dealership and they ask a question, who is the boss? It really comes down to one of three things. The first thing is it could be a salesperson wanting to sell something, and they want the boss to analyze, get right to the immediate contact of the person that can make a decision. Number two, it could be a complaint that the customer has about their recent visit or the visit that's going on right now. And the third thing, it could be a compliment. But today we're going to go ahead and break down some of these things and look at them with some detail on how you can best respond to either one of these three questions. And the first one, it could be a salesperson. So I really suggest that sales people contact when they come in. It could be they have a great product or a great idea, and I don't want to suggest to anybody that no one should be open to things that a salesperson has to offer. But I do think it's reasonable to limit the contact. What I find as Fixed Performance is growing, there's a lot of companies that want to associate with us and teach us what they do, so we're recommending their product and service. Obviously, we can't recommend everybody as a Fixed Performance team, but what I find is I limit that conversation to 15 minutes. And I know that within 15 minutes, I've got a good handle on whether that conversation should continue or it should not. And in that evaluation, when I'm going through these things, I also want them scheduled, because for whatever reason, people can often find my cell phone number, want to make a solicitation call on the cell, and I prefer those calls be scheduled. Now, I have a regular person that tracks my schedule, that writes my schedule, and I find that if these calls are scheduled, then I have a little time I could prepare and look and evaluate that company. And sometimes when someone is making a presentation, I will stop them in that presentation and say, it's just not for me, or it's not something I'm going to recommend to my customer base. But if you have, just without any process or any kind of a pattern that you have, these salespeople can take up a substantial amount of time, and they can make calls at inconvenient situations during the day. I believe that it's not inappropriate to ask for a limit on it. If you can sit with someone for 5 minutes and determine that their product isn't for you, then of course you would end that immediately and go on down the road. However, if you would say that I have these meetings at certain times of the day, or these meetings have to be scheduled, that's reasonable. That's a reasonable expectation, and it does free up your time and help put it into perspective and let you do your day-to-day work without substantial interruption. The most important thing of the three here, when someone asks, who is the boss, is a complaint. And the way that we handle a complaint is either going to be a positive or it's going to be a negative in that customer response for the future. When I started dialing into complaints, when I was Fixed Ops Director, I really started dialing into complaints. And first of all, you had better have a process to handle them. It's got to be defined without question. Everybody in the facility knows what to do, how to act, and how to respond to the customer. That's critical to customer retention and satisfaction. Absolutely critical. Here's what you need to look at. The first part of that is when or how quick should the advisors notify you. Now, personally, I believe that a manager should be notified as soon as they know someone is getting upset. The sooner the manager's involved, I find it the better. Also, terms of empowerment need to be disclosed, understood at the advisor level. If someone is concerned about why the oil change is taking an hour and a half when they were expecting it to be a half hour, and their vehicle still isn't done and they haven't been updated, you can see that this would be an irritant, especially in sitting in a waiting area, waiting for the vehicle with no updates. The advisors need to have an immediate authorization for empowerment to take care of that issue. Now, even when the advisors have an empowerment, do you think by any stretch of the imagination that the manager's response or the manager's process stops there? Absolutely not. What happened? Why did this happen? How could the dealership improve? Now, one of the things that must be a part of this, I think every dealership has to have a follow-up with the customers that have come in for service department, and that should be an immediate response. It's not an inconvenience. Most people are willing to share, but when they leave, they could have had an hour and a half wait for an oil change, and they didn't want to complain to anybody. But if someone calls them on the telephone, how did we do? Or how is your vehicle running? I know we did a repair. Here's the RO. It's in front of them during the discussion. How's the car starting now? Or whatever the concern was. Ask the questions. And that usually puts them on a more open area where they're willing to share. Well, you know what? This happened to me. I was there for 2 hours on the oil change, and I was really discouraged because I had other plans. You know, your visit disrupted my other plans. I'm not real happy about it. Well, wouldn't that be good information to know? But you see, it's got to go beyond that. What are we going to do to change the reason this 2-hour oil change happened or hour and a half oil change happened without an update? Now, I've looked into these. I've called myself every customer that had an area of concern. Now, initially, that takes a ton of time. But if you have a team of people making calls and you're actually asking them some specific questions and you're noting these responses, my feeling is that when a manager sees that someone isn't happy with their visit, then they need to get personally involved and understand what happened. The reason for that personal involvement, it shows a commitment from the dealership to be the best. Also, it gives us the information we need so we can work our internal processes out so that this doesn't happen. You see, the problem with most of these complaints is they never get resolved with a good process that the dealership can implement to make sure it doesn't happen anymore. And ultimately, that's the greatest need for this information. So instead of blowing off a customer concern or not understanding what happened, we need to be proactively involved and understand what we can do to get the changes we have to make to remove this from our dealership. The major focus has to be, how can we improve? And if that's a daily effort, then the dealership will win huge amount of improvement on customer retention, a huge amount of improvement on customer satisfaction, and also profitability. If you keep them coming back, they know that you're concerned about their issues. You'll keep more than you'll lose. Now, I think the manager involvement is critical, but you know what? As critical as that is that the entire team is involved with the reviews. And there should be a weekly meeting where this is a focus, where the team gets down, hey, this happened to us last week. Here's what we're finding. Here's some suggestions on how we can improve this process. And then get their input. What happened? Their side of the story. It doesn't mean that you're going to blow off the customer issue, but you're going to understand it. It's critical to understand it from everyone's point of view, involving the entire team as to why this happened. How can we improve? How can we be better? How can we make this never happen again? That being said, there is one thing that is so rare, but it is there. It's the third thing on this list, and that's a compliment. The customer can actually ask, who is the boss, just to give a compliment on the care that they've received. Now, I will tell you the third thing is very rare. But if you focus in on number 2, a complaint, an interesting thing will happen. A very desirable thing, but very rare. Someone will take the time to give the dealership team a compliment. And as often as you have to be involved with the complaints, congratulate the team on every compliment. Let them know that these are desired, that this is the ultimate goal. Acknowledge them in front of the group. Let everybody know that was involved. We care about our customers. We will seek these compliments and make them so, instead of being rare, they will be common, and they will be for us to celebrate as a team. I'm going to briefly just announce next week's call this time, and then we'll open it up for comments or questions. Next week's call will be generating profit. Now, I know that everyone wants to generate profit. We're going to go into next week's call and get into some solid, proven ways to help generate profit for the dealership service department. All right, let's open it up for questions. Always in our calls, you can raise your hand by pressing number 1, and Mike Sebo, our moderator, will see that hand is raised, and we'll do that at this time. So if you have any comments, push number 1. Okay, Mike, if there's no comments, then we'll end this call. Hope everybody has a super day and enjoy the journey towards handling these issues. Thanks again for your attendance. Bye-bye.